Hi, I'm Tori, and today I'm going to be discussing The Thin Man by Dashiell Hammett. I listened to the audiobook narrated by William Defree. So this is a very famous mystery story. It is set in 1933 and was published in 1934, and there is a film noir based on it. I did see that movie once, several years ago, but enough time has passed that I didn't remember anything about the plot, so I got to go into this book basically fresh. This was a very fun and intriguing story that followed the adventures of Nick Charles and his wife Nora as they solve this murder that seems to have just fallen into their laps. The atmosphere of this story was so great. I loved seeing all the wealthy people running around doing dastardly things, and you could almost see the story in black and white. I enjoyed this book very much, and I would highly recommend that you read it. Then you can come back and hear what I have to say about it. So the first thing I noticed about this story is that Nick is a retired detective who never actually takes the case. Throughout this whole book, he's going around trying to solve this mystery, trying to figure out what happened, and no one ever actually hires him. People keep trying to get him involved in this murder, but he never signs up for it. He's just kind of like there, and everyone asks him questions about it, and then his wife Nora is very excited, and so he just kind of goes along with it. I also thought it was interesting, if I heard right, Nick is in his mid-40s and Nora is 26, so there's quite an age difference there, and you could kind of feel that in the book. Nick was a retired detective. He was kind of done with all of this stuff, and Nora was very much more intrigued by it and looking for a little mystery, which makes sense if she's younger and not as tired yet. And you could definitely see where Nora was coming from. They led this lavish lifestyle where basically their only job was taking care of the money that she had. Nick said that he had retired from being a detective so he could manage Nora's money or property or whatever wealth she has. They just sit around in their hotel in New York ordering room service and getting rather bored, so they have time to run off and solve a mystery. And I was thinking, this book came out in 1934. It was set in 1933, and that must have been great escapism for people, because that's right in the middle of the Great Depression, and it must have been so much fun for them to read about these lavish, wealthy people, and to just kind of watch Nick and Nora playing like gentleman detective, and we shall go off and solve your crime, because we have nothing better to do. I did also think the police were really interesting in this book. The only other Dashiell Hammett book I've read is The Maltese Falcon, and in that, the police are stupid and really get in the way. And in this book, the police aren't that much more intelligent, but they are happy to have Nick on the case, and they willingly give him all the information they have and try to get him involved, which ends up being a good decision in the story because he helps a lot, but it also seems really illegal that you would just take this private person who isn't even a detective that someone's hired, he's a retired detective, and just say, here, I'm going to tell you everything we know about the case, please help us out. And I don't know if that's just a difference from 1933 to now, or if they just kind of did that for the story, and it's like, well, this isn't really legal, but we know that Nick is such a good detective, it's okay. And ignoring the legal part, that was really smart, because the police aren't that great at their job. They have the one junior police officer who's supposed to bring Gil in, and it, beats him, horribly, and then on top of that, doesn't even get the information he needed because he tried to bring him in too soon, and the police don't seem all that competent. And so really, the police are only there kind of at the end, they start to suspect Nick a little bit, so they make his life a little bit harder and add tension to the story. But mostly they just give Nick information and make his job easier. And one of the best things about this book was that when the book is over and you find out how the murder happened, it actually makes really good sense. In a lot of film noirs and books that they're based on, it doesn't always flow that well. When I read The Maltese Falcon, a lot of the details got jumbled in my head and I couldn't keep track of who did what and who was where, and it seemed like you had to focus really hard to get it. And in this, there were some characters who I didn't quite understand the purpose of, and I did get some names mixed up because I wasn't focusing very hard on it. But overall, when you're done with it, the story does make a lot of sense, and you do see how everything happened, and it clicks really well, and you understand everyone's motives, and the overall story that you've just witnessed really falls into place. It was really interesting that Julia Wolfe, the murder victim, and Wynant, the suspected murderer for a lot of the book, the title character of the book, and it turns out another murder victim, aren't really involved in the book, and that ends up being a major plot point because you always feel like Wynant's there, but you never actually see him, and that is how Nick ends up solving the mystery and figuring out that Wynant was murdered and he hasn't been around this entire book. And that was just such a great build-up because you don't notice that these characters aren't there because you're too busy watching the crazy drama happening in the Wynant family. You know, Mimi is just kind of all over the place, and she lies compulsively and is always come up with these big dramatic stories. And then you have Gil, who's really weirdly obsessed with some kind of dark stuff, and Dorothy, who just attaches herself to the Charles family and has to stay around them and is always crashing at their house and stuff. And these three people are just running in circles, causing so much chaos that it kind of hides what's really going on and works really well to distract you from Wynant's absence. It was also interesting, in a lot of like film noir style detective novels, the femme fatale is the love interest of the detective. But here, Nick is happily married to Nora, and so you kind of get two sort of femme fatale characters. You get Mimi, who was his ex. She's a past lover, and she lies continuously, but she's central to this, and they really need a lot of information from her, and she's always flirting and being, oh, poor helpless me, you must help me. And so she's kind of there. And then we have her daughter, Dorothy, who is a really interesting femme fatale, because most femme fatales are kind of mature and sexualized, and she is more of the angle of, I'm a little girl, please help me, I'm just the young daughter of your friend, you must help me, oh please, kind sir. And so it was really interesting to kind of watch them manipulating the characters around them. And then when you find out that the lawyer is the murderer, it's such a great twist, because he seemed so nice throughout the book, and he was so helpful, and you just really trusted him throughout the book. And when you find out it was him, it makes so much sense, and all the trustworthy things he did seem very shady. And he was just the perfect murderer, and I love the way this story wrapped up, and it was so great. So I enjoyed this book very much. I thought it was a wonderfully atmospheric mystery. It was full of these really rich characters who all had so many reasons to lie and so many things to hide, and all these different plot elements going on, like Mimi's second husband who was really still married to someone else, and all this different stuff going on, and Dorothy ends up having an affair with someone else, and it just was so great to watch all this tangled web of deception just straighten out and make so much sense. I enjoyed this book very much. I will definitely recommend it, and I'm excited to pick up some more books by Dashiell Hammett.